Hi, I'm Marc Randolph, co-founder of Netflix and 6 other companies. Over the years, I've heard that will never work thousands of times, but I've learned there are things we all can do to increase the chances that they will. So join me for That Will Never Work. Hey everybody, welcome to That Will Never Work. It's no secret that the pandemic has hammered small business owners, especially those with brick and mortar locations. But this week's guest, Angela McIver, wasn't going to let her thriving math enrichment business close, even when her store had to. As a prime example of the power of the pivot, she's actually managed to more than double her customer base and take her Philadelphia local business national by moving it online. Trapezium Math now serves kids in 18 states. But all this potential for growth has her at a crossroads. Should she keep going slow and steady, or is the time right to raise investment to help her scale at speed? And can she compete with the big franchise players like Mathnasium and Kumon? Well, that's what I'm here to help her figure out today. Angela, welcome to That Will Never Work. I'm actually pretty eager to talk with you because a gift came to me in the mail a few days ago, and I've been puzzling over this ever since. It is this giant box that says Trapezium Math Clubhouse. And I'm not sure whether it was meant for me. It says kindergarten to 5th grade. I don't know how you realized my level of mathematic ability, but nevertheless, I do want to learn more about this. Why don't you start us off by tell us a little bit about what you're working on, how it's going, and then maybe you could lead into what it is you want to talk about today.
Thank you so much for having me. So Trapezium Math is dedicated to increasing the number of children who leave elementary school prepared to succeed in the most rigorous math programs in middle school and beyond. That's what we do. And prior to the pandemic, we were a hyper-local brick and mortar small business that did after-school math enrichment, summer camps, and we also had a consulting arm that worked with schools to do curriculum, training, and professional development. So we were adamantly technology free. So if you were to come into our space, there were no tables and chairs. The club leaders and kids took their shoes off and put them in the cubbies and sat on the floor. All of our walls were whiteboard walls. And we dedicated our time to getting kids to do really hard math, but in really fun and engaging ways. So we had 2 big culminating events each year. One was a math magic show, which was a full-length play that our kids put on and did really impressive mental math tricks, like telling the day of the week for any date on the calendar, or just impressive calculations in their head. And then we also did a monster mathathon, which was hugely popular with our kids, which was fashioned after the Amazing Race. So pairs of kids with a parent chaperone would race around Philadelphia solving math problems to try to win the Monster Mathathon. We did that every year for almost 10 years. But we became a casualty of the pandemic and had to close our brick and mortar store in July of 2020. And the only thing that saved us really was PPP loans and EIDL loans. And my staff and I had to pivot and figure out what to do. And it was daunting because we were just decidedly technology free, and we had to figure out how to embrace technology to continue doing math clubs. So what we came up with is the kit, which you have. We decided that if we were going to teach math club online, the only technology children would need is a Zoom connection, and everything else they would do without a mouse, without clicking anything, they would do hands-on. And so we created this kit, and then we also moved all of our content online into a portal, because by that point our staff had moved across the country. So we had a kit and a portal, and we started doing Math Club online in the fall of 2021. We kind of did our pilot and then launched big in January. So we went from being hyper local to having children from 18 states doing Math Club.
And so give me a sense of the scale here. So yes, you have people in 18 states. Does that mean you have 19 students or 19,000 students?
No, somewhere in between there. We have now about 300 students in Math Club. And we have, our revenue model is actually twofold. A big chunk of that actually is schools, a school district that purchased Math Club for 200 of their kids. So we have 100 kids in Math Club that parents have found us online and have purchased. And then we had a school district that said, we want you to do this for 200 of our elementary school children. So that is the scale of what we have right now.
So it sounds like things are going comfortably. What is it that you want to chat about?
So prior to the pandemic, when I had my business, I realized a long time ago that what I was doing was not sexy for investors, right? All I heard was make a computer-based program that is, subscription-based that kids can do online. And I just, to my core, reject that. And now we have something that really we've been able to maintain our ethos, right? And yet it's scalable. And I'm really trying to think about ways that we can scale this. So I've gone through, I've gone through many different revenue models, and the one that I have settled on, I think, is really the most promising in terms of revenue and scale. And that's similar to like the OutSchool model. I don't know if you're familiar with OutSchool, but it is an online, it blew up during the pandemic. They were an online platform where teachers could, or anyone actually, could create a class, and parents look for classes, and the kids do them online, and they're just a ton of classes, right? You could do cooking, you could do what have you. But what we really would love to do is train teachers or train club leaders in our model, in our program, give them access to our portal, allow them to, have our kid, and then they can set their times and their rates to teach math clubs on their own. So it really is creating a digital platform that would allow anyone who is trained to teach our math club.
So Angela, how big does this get? And how quickly do you get there?
So we would love to hit 50,000 registered math club users, students, children, right? There's 35 million elementary children in the country, and we think 50,000 is a reasonable target.
Well, I think that would certainly make a dent in our STEM literacy if we could at least get 50,000 kids through this thing.
Absolutely.
Give me a sense of scale. Like, how does that stack up against companies like Mathnasium or Kumon?
So Mathnasium and Kumon are franchises. They serve somewhere between 500,000 and 1 million students around the world. So they have franchises all over the world. So in my research, I've been able to kind of hit about 500,000 kids in the United States are served by Mathnasium and Kumon. We're just K-5. Mathnasium and Kumon are K-12.
And do you envision reaching people who aren't being served by those companies, or are you taking customers away from them?
Both. And we have always taken customers away from them. We have parents who find us and say, my children don't want to do any more worksheet-based tutoring, and they found us online, and they send their children to us. We are very different model for how we engage with kids in math. So we expect that we would get those customers as well as new ones.
Well, if nothing else, it certainly demonstrates that there's certainly a big market for parents and students who are looking to improve their math skills.
Absolutely.
Okay, so you've used some interesting words here. And one is the scalable one, in which you're looking for a way to be scalable, right, or to scale the business. You're looking potentially for investment to help you scale the business. But I've also heard a bunch of different businesses thrown out of here, all of which it sounds like you're just kind of barely in. So one is you have one where individual parents sign
right
up for their kids.
Right.
You have another one where school districts or subsets of school districts or schools, let's say, sign up for groups of kids all at once.
Right.
And then you have a third model, which is you become basically a platform
right
for other teachers to find their own students to teach.
Right.
Which of those are you thinking you want to scale, or which one is demonstrated has the capacity to scale, or do you have any idea yet?
It's really the last one is the one, and it's really funny because you and I were supposed to talk last week, and between last week and this week, I went back to the drawing board. So I've been going back to the drawing board a lot and trying to map out how much would it cost. And so originally we were like, well, we'll just grow this and hire more teachers, club leaders across the country. And when I started doing the math on that, it just didn't make sense. And we were becoming a staffing company, right? We were we'd have to hire a lot of employees, and the margins didn't look pretty. So then I thought, well, maybe this is something we franchise, but instead of a traditional franchise where you buy a geographic, location, that maybe you're buying a number of students that you can serve, right? Because you can serve students from anywhere. And so then I did, I was kind of modeling that, and I thought, you know what, I think that it seemed just to make more sense that we just make something available where the entry is easy for a club leader, someone who wanted to teach the club leader. They could, pay for the kits, pay for the training, get onboarded, and then they could go. And so I landed on that last one. So, there's also the schools, which can be very lucrative, but I don't want to go down that path, and that's simply because it's so hard. It is so hard to get with schools, and right now we're benefiting from American Recovery Act monies that have been sent to schools, and schools are finding that they have to use it or lose it. So I'm like, okay, we'll go after that. But as a long-term strategy, I don't think that makes sense.
Wow. Well, you've done a lot of work in terms of certainly figuring out what doesn't work. And I would agree with you. Selling to school districts is brutal. First of all, they have very, very seasonal decision-making patterns.
Right.
Number two is that the teachers have no money.
Right.
And so now you're not selling to a teacher, you're selling to school districts, or you're selling to school administration. And that is really, really hard. Or you're trying to sell to parents, and you're competing with Scholastic and the bake sale.
Right.
In other words, I agree. I'm not saying it's not doable, and certainly for someone like yourself who thinks you invented a better wheel for teaching math, maybe it's compelling. But I would agree, it's really, really hard. The other one you mentioned was the franchise one, which it sounds like you've rejected as well. And I'm not saying that's wrong per se, but I would agree that you're way, way too early to be thinking about that. In a nutshell, franchising is basically selling someone a complete playbook.
Right.
Here's exactly how you do it. And you don't know yet how you do it. I mean, you know how to run your own program, but you don't know you don't have it all nailed down to when you're entering into a district. Here's how to find the teachers. Here's how to find the students. Here's how to put it all together. So, as opposed to if you buy a McDonald's franchise, you go to Hamburger University for 2 weeks. You have 6 binders that sit in the shelf that tell you exactly what corner of the hamburger to insert the spatula under. I mean, it's detailed. You're not there yet. So that leaves you with this last one model, which you've kind of come up with in the last week or so, which basically is sort of like not a franchise, but it's basically saying we're a platform for other people who want to do their own math clubs.
Right.
Do I have that right?
You have that right.
And have you done that yet? In
terms of made it available for teachers to run? No, no. We have 22 club leaders now who we are thinking we would kind of focus group them and kind of see if they would be interested in moving to this platform. Actually, to me, they could make far more money than what we pay them, right? And they can, make their own hours and decide how to do that. So our thought is that we would do our group of club leaders first, right, as a test. But we need to create the system. Right now we have a system where parents can come and register. We have a portal where our club leaders go on to access all of our content. We have the kits. We have a fulfillment center that sends those out. We have all of that, but to build that, it's building a building a different platform. And we have not done that. That's what we're, I'd like to talk about the idea of getting money to do that, to build that. Yes, nervous. No, wow.
So for those of you who are listening, the kit that Angela sent me is really cool. I have no idea how it works because basically I'm no math student.
You did it just right, though. Those are our emotion emojis because, we work with young children as young as kindergarten, and they often will, share how they're feeling using their emotion emojis. So that was perfect.
I think these are good. And my choice, I could have picked angry, but I'm not angry. But I'm not happy either.
No?
I'm nervous.
Okay.
And then, of course, I have a big thumbs up, thumb down paddle, and I kind of gave her the thumbs down. Since it's binary, I kind of would have liked to do this one, which is kind of the half.
Right.
Maybe that's better. That's half full. This one's half empty. Here's the thing is that you are nowhere near ready to raise money.
No.
You will get yourself in so much trouble if you raise money now. I'm a little nervous, which is why I flashed the card. This kit must have cost you a fortune to put together.
So the kit cost $77 landed, and we sell it for $235.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
And is the 235 so when someone joins,
yes,
they pay you some fee to be in the club and they buy the kit?
Yes, they buy the kit, and the kit, as you'll see on the kit, it says K to 5. So we have kids who are now, in their second year of doing math club. They can use the same materials. It doesn't change. So the kit works for a kindergartner as well as a fifth grader. And so we tell the parents it's a one-time kit fee. We also say to parents that we want them to think of this like piano lessons, right? That if you want your child to be ready for the most rigorous courses in middle school, those are great.
You have to, this is equivalent to buying the piano.
Exactly.
I assume, right?
Exactly. And that's the messaging that we give, that 60% of fourth graders in this country are not proficient in math, and by the time they get to 12th grade, it's almost 80% of kids. We do a horrible job in this country preparing kids in math, and I believe personally that no matter where you send your child, if you're sending them to a $50,000 a year private school or public school, you have to supplement in math because we haven't figured it out. Elementary schools haven't figured it out. And so that's the messaging we give to parents. Like, this isn't a one-time, thing. This is something you commit to, and we commit as well.
I think it's great. I think that you have one of the rare parts of an entrepreneurial puzzle, which is you have the domain expertise. Mm-hmm. You have lots of experience as a math teacher mm-hmm. and a supplemental math teacher. You have lots of experience working with Math Club and learning what pedagogic, what teaching methods, that's better, what teaching methods are effective for bringing kids up the level, how to keep them engaged and happy. I love that. So I certainly cannot dismiss you on that you've got this passion and this understanding of I can take a kid and I can move them from being struggling to being excited.
Yes.
And what an amazing accomplishment. And any parent is going to pay hundreds of dollars for that. No problem. The thing you don't know yet is what the model is for a successful business that does this, or it does so in a scalable manner.
Right.
I mean, you've got this 380, I'm going to discount the bulk purchase, the 200
right.
seat license. Because that's not what you're going to continue with. So you've got 180 kids. Do I have the numbers right? About 180 kids?
Yeah, or close to 200, yeah.
Yeah. So the real question you're struggling with is, can I duplicate that somewhere else?
Right.
By having some other teachers running these clubs. You have to figure out the whole piece of it. In other words, are you just going to tell these club leaders, go figure out how to find your own set of 180 parents? Or are you providing that?
So we would provide that, and we've spent a lot of time trying to figure that out. And we started first with a parent referral program, and we realized that actually didn't work, at least for our parent demographic, because we were giving a free week for every person you refer, and parents were like, I don't need that week. The parents who pay for math club didn't need it and weren't interested. So we would do these Zoom town halls, and we had a really high conversion rate. Once we had parents come to our town halls, and we would share what we would do. Here we had one that had 30 parents, and we had 24 registrations by the end. And then we now do this try before you buy, which we did two things. We did try before you buy, and we also did a money back guarantee. You can send the kit back if you're not happy.
I gotta back you up here. I'm confused. So you have these 180 kids from 18 different states, right? So if someone starts another club, are they now competing with you? And if someone starts the third club, are they competing with the other club and you, et cetera?
So no. Is there a geographic license that you get, or is everyone just fighting for customers with each other? It would be the entire United States, right? So we don't have regional clubs. So we have 4 children in a club. We could have a kid from Maine, a kid from Florida, a kid from Philly, and a kid from Kansas, right?
So you build the club using your own acquisition methods, and then you find someone else to teach it, but they're not an employee. That's what I'm confused about. I'm not sure how important it is to understand this.
We have the whole, like you said, with a franchise, like this is how you do it. We have this is how you do it. We have for everything. We have over 1,000 activities on our portal with very specific instructions on how to do it. We have an onboarding process where we train club leaders on how you run a club. It's very turnkey and kind of plug and play. So club leaders don't have to kind of come up with their own stuff. We have it all.
And have you onboarded new club leaders using this model yet?
We have, and we have started onboarding leaders almost, we're doing it almost weekly because, we're getting registration. So we have, and we've done this with the intention of, putting systems in place that allow us to scale. So we have all of that. The only, we have the content, we have the curriculum, we have the training piece. We do we have just the step-by-step when people come on. We even figured out that Craigslist is the best way to find our club leaders, So we have that.
So here's the piece about the scaling piece. I love what you've done so far, but once you start getting investors involved, okay, I hate to break it to you, but they don't really care that much about the curriculum, about the content. Right. It's almost entirely a numerical analysis.
Right.
I mean, they'll want to understand the space to get a sense of how big this could be or how quickly it could grow and those sort of things. But fundamentally, the things that you're delivering to them are very, very basic economics where you basically say, here is what it costs and how long it takes for us to find a club is 4 people? Is that right?
4 kids in a club, right.
So for us to build a club, here's how much it costs and how long it takes us to find a person to be the club leader.
Yeah.
Here's how much the person pays while they're in the club. Here's how long they stay in the club on average. And if all that math works, and you have demonstrated that you have been doing that consistently for some period, and that the numbers are not getting diminishing returns, but are in fact generating increasing returns. In other words, each successive month, your customer acquisition cost is going down, your cost of finding new club leaders is going down, your margins are going up, et cetera. If that's all happening month over month, then you're right. You're in a great place to say raising money. Because the point is, what you want to present to these people is basically this machine where you say, here's the machine. It's really cool. We've now worked on this for 3 years, and we figured out how to put a $1 bill on the top, and we turn the crank, and $1.75 comes out the bottom. And it worked. We did that for like 3 months. It was amazing. So we began putting $10 bills in, and then $17.50 became $20 came pouring out the bottom. So I began putting $100 bills in and $300, et cetera, whatever the number. It came to the math. There you go, math problem. But and what you would then want to say to them is, we've proven that when you put money in this and turn the crank, more money comes out than we put in. Now I'm just looking for you to more money to put into the crank, or to build 3 more machines that do this. But if you don't have that machine built, if you don't have the evidence that this machine consistently, when you turn the crank, generates those returns, you're going to always be doing a lot of hand waving, a lot of imagine, a lot of just think about the kids, just think about how many people there are. And that's they're all gonna go, oh, God bless you, Angela, you were doing God's work. And then they'll come up with some clever, we're not investing in that category, or come back to us in a couple years, or they won't say no, they just won't say yes either.
Okay.
Are you ready to say, I understand completely what it takes to turn the crank, that if I put $1 million in, I'm going to turn the crank and $10 million is going to come out?
I think I'm really close to that. We've looked at what our customer retention rate is, like what the long-term value of a customer is now that we moved to this online portal. Before, our kids stayed in Math Club an average of 3 years, right? Parents would put them in like second grade. They would stay until they aged out, which is at 5th grade. And we've not been long enough, but we're starting to get those numbers. 70% of our students who started in September of 21 are still with our program, as long as they didn't graduate out. We had a number of 5th graders who graduated out, and we're seeing that we're able to get those retention numbers. So I think that's a big thing, because that's the long-term value of the customer is big. If we build this separate platform, as opposed to the way that we have been onboarding and recruiting teachers, does that work? We haven't done that yet, and I hear what you're saying in terms of we need to go back and do some of that testing beforehand. But the struggle is, to build the platform, we need money to get the information. And so I'm just trying to figure out where, and I really do want to get as far as possible without having to ask for any investment.
Well, if you take that attitude, that is exactly the right one, which is you do not want to ask for money. I promise. You want to get as far as you can without, because once you ask for money, you are in all kinds of debt.
Yeah.
And I don't mean economic debt, although that's true sometimes too. I mean, now you have a responsibility to that person to make this happen. And if you're not ready for that, it really has lots of unintended consequences. So what I want you to think about is reverse engineer the way a investor, and this is any investor, it could be friends and family, it could be a professional investor, or anything in between, the way that they're going to think about it. You need to have a very, very clear idea of what it is that this next piece of money you're asking for is going to prove out.
Okay.
And the clever way to structure it is to make sure you have each of those steps very discrete. So to use a quick example of a classic software company, a brilliant engineer might go, I've got this really cool idea that maybe I could do code which does this. And when you go to the investor and you go, here's my idea, I have no idea, it's going to take me about a year to write the code and see if it works. Well, it's very clear what the bet is. Maybe he can make it work, maybe he can't make it work. But that's what this investment's going to be. And then a year later, he goes, look at this, cool, it does what it's supposed to do. Now I need some money because I need to productize it and take it to market. Well, now the bet is anyone going to want to buy it? That's very clear too. So then the money, that investment happens that round, and now lo and behold, some customers buy it. And then you go, wow, okay, what's the next bet? Now we need to scale this sales force. And the investor goes, well, I know the bet now is, I know we can sell it to 1 or 2 companies, but can you really sell it to hundreds? Or, wow, made it work in San Francisco, can you make it work nationwide? In other words, each time, and this goes on forever, I mean, always each step up is knowing clearly what your trying to prove. Right. And what you don't want to do is jump stages.
Right.
So if you say to yourself, the next thing you have to prove is that this portal concept actually works.
Right.
Now you have some evidence. You know that educationally this works. You know that when people get into it, they stick around. You know how to teach it. You've learned a lot of things. So if I was investing in you a year and a half ago, I'm going, I don't really think this is going to work. I don't think kids will stick around or get any value out of it. You would now say, okay, Marc, we've proven that's correct. Next phase is, can I scale this? And so now I'm going, God, I got a lot of questions about whether Angela can actually pull this off, whether she can really recruit people from outside and scale up her ability to build clubs way beyond her hand-holding it and talking to parents. That's the bet.
Right.
And so what you need to do when you go back with your little calculator or your slide rule and start saying, what you want to do is the first thing go, can I figure that out without raising any money?
Right.
Can I cobble it together on my own? That's the best. If not, you pick the minimum amount of money that you need just to prove that piece of it.
Right.
And then raise that as simply as you can. Then you go, okay, I've got it working. And look at this. I've figured out you can do this. And I've found 5 or 6 other teachers and we have the portal going. And these dynamics look great. Now you begin packaging that up and say, I'm ready for the next scale. In other words, each time you're doing the step up, and you're not ready for a big step up yet, you still have a big piece to prove, right, which is you can move beyond the model where you have it pretty much being done by hand through sheer force of will, and begin to build a system that says, I think this thing can run, we can teach other people to do it themselves, how to find the customers, how to teach, how to do. But what I want you to do is say, the next step is I got to prove that I'm right.
Okay.
And if you can prove it without money, all power to you. If you need to raise money, make sure it's very, very clear to people what the gamble is, right, and price this in a way that they recognize, here's the risk. If we get it right, wow, this could be very valuable. Yeah. But we may not. And that's the nature of investing.
That is really helpful. We're banking on, in terms of finding club leaders, the numbers of teachers who, because of the pandemic, whatever, are just leaving the profession, and we're like, no, come over to us. You can continue teaching, but make your own schedule and set your own rates. And I think there's we're really ripe for that. The context that we're in now really kind of positions us well for that, and we have to figure out if that is actually true.
What you just said, if we had written that down, which is that I think the time is right for us really to make this difference, and that's fantastic. That's exactly where you are now. And what I want is in 6 months from now, for you to be saying to me, the data now shows that we are.
I will do that.
That's the difference.
6 months from now.
Which is, or whatever it takes. But you want to convert it from, this is the nature of the pitch.
Right.
The engineer goes in, I think it's possible to write some code which does this amazing thing.
Right. And
then 6 months later, he comes back, goes, the data shows that this code does this amazing thing. Yes. Now, I think we can create a product which will appeal to this customer. And then 6 months later, he goes, the data has shown that customers love this. Now, I think we can build a sales force out. And then 6 months later, the data shows how fast we're growing and being adapted. It's always that the pitch is the data shows, which is how much my traction is so far, and what I think is going to happen, and what the bet is, you, Mr. Investor, on coming in with me. So you're at a really good inflection point. So think to yourself what it would take to gather that evidence. And if you can gather that evidence that this thing actually does work without raising money, way, way ahead of the game. And then you're in a great spot, because then you put together your presentation. You've proven that you've built the machine, that if you, Mr. Investor or Mrs. Investor, put in $1 million and we turn the crank, it's going to be worth $10 million. Or actually, usually it's a 3x each time, rough rule of thumb, but you get the idea.
I do. That's really helpful. And I'm going to go back to the drawing board and try to get further along the path. before asking for money.
And maybe we'll talk. Maybe we can talk again on October 11th. Oh, and what day of the week is that? The 11th, October 11th. Angela?
Okay,
Angela,
there's a lot of math involved, and so I'm not even. I'm rusty.
Okay, I'll let you off the hook. But anyway, Angela, no, I'm serious. I do at some point want you to come back and then fill me in on how things have gone, because right now the business looks like this. And for those of you listening at home and not being able to see this, I'm holding up this really cool card with 5 multicolored question marks on it. And what we're hoping is that when we come back, we can flip over one of these cards and see that underneath it, Angela gets an A.
Perfect. I'm on it. I have my marching orders.
Really impressive. So thanks again for joining me.
Thank you.
And I really am looking forward to hearing how things come out.
Thank you. I'm looking forward to it as well. Thank you so much for having me.
It is always great to hear from someone who is running into a dead end, pivoted, and found a way to find success. And I really hope Angela can put my advice into action for her next steps. And hopefully next time we talk, I can turn my thumbs down into a big thumbs up. But if you're struggling with your pivot and you have some questions, please join me as a guest on the That Will Never Work podcast. Simply come to markrandolph.com/guest to apply.